At Christmas dinner, my wealthy grandpa gave everyone a check. My parents laughed. It's just for show, another fake one. I smiled and quietly kept mine. The next morning, the bank called. Only one check cleared. Grandpa just nodded and said, "Good." That's when I learned who truly cares. You know that feeling when your family's Christmas dinner is just tense? Ours was always a performance, a show for everyone but ourselves. But one year, my Grandpa Walter slid 3 plain, white envelopes across the polished dining table, and what we all thought was just another one of his silly old man jokes turned out to be the most brutal, shocking test of loyalty, love, and honesty anyone could imagine. And believe me, my parents failed spectacularly. It was Christmas dinner, the air thick with the smell of pine and roasted duck, and even thicker with unspoken expectations. My mother, Denise, always on edge, her smile brittle, fretting over whether the duck was too dry. My dad, Charles, hiding behind his phone, probably checking stock prices under the table. And then there was Grandpa Walter. He looked so small in that huge, high-backed dining chair, wearing his old, dark green wool sweater, the one my mom probably secretly judged as inappropriate for her perfect table. And then he did it. He pulled out 3 plain white envelopes, the kind you get from the bank, and slid one to my dad, one to my mom, and one all the way down the table to me. "A little Christmas gift for each of you," he said, his voice so quiet, almost a whisper. My parents, they didn't even skip a beat. They laughed. My mother's high, tinkling party laugh, instantly filling the rigid silence. "Oh, Dad," she chirped, picking up the envelope but not opening it. Still playing Santa. "Huh? This is so cute. What is it this year? A check for 1,000,000 I love yous." She actually fanned herself with it, like it was a joke program. My dad chuckled, a smirk playing on his lips, picking up his own envelope. "The man loves his jokes," he said, tapping it lightly on the table. He looked at me, a silent command. "Just play along, Sam. He loves it." He didn't open his either, just set it next to his wine glass like a crumpled napkin. But I didn't laugh. I couldn't. I just looked at Grandpa. His eyes, I'll never forget them. They weren't twinkling. They weren't happy. They were deep, profoundly sad, and utterly exhausted. He was looking right at me. "Thank you, Grandpa," I whispered, my voice barely audible as I picked up my envelope. And just for a second he nodded, a tiny, almost invisible nod. And then, so softly my parents didn't hear it, he said, "Keep it safe." My heart did this weird, tight flip. Keep it safe. What did that even mean? I clutched that envelope, feeling its weight, and tucked it deep into my coat pocket. My parents, they'd already forgotten theirs. Mom was talking about her plans for a New Year's Eve party. Dad had probably pocketed his without a thought, like you'd pocket a business card you were planning to throw away. The joke was over. The performance, their perfect Christmas charade, continued. But me? I felt it deep in my bones. Something had just cracked. The foundation was giving way. You see, to understand what happened next, you have to understand my family. My name is Samantha Reed, I'm 30 years old, and my parents, Charles and Denise Reed, cared about one thing above all else, looking perfect. Their entire lives were about image. We lived in this huge, beautiful house in a neighborhood where every house was a glossy magazine cover. The lawns were perfect. The cars were new. My mother picked our house because it had a grand, winding staircase. "Impressive," she'd say, "good for first impressions." The inside, just as impressive and just as cold. We had this living room no one was allowed to live in. The carpet was white. The sofas were white, covered in expensive, scratchy fabric. My mother chose them from a design magazine. "Isn't it elegant, Samantha?" she'd ask. I'd just nod. I remember once, when I was 8, I spilled a tiny drop of water on that white sofa. The way my mother screamed, you would have thought I'd set the house on fire. She scrubbed for an hour, her face tight with anger. "This is why we can't have nice things," she whispered, but she was looking right at me. After that, I never went into that room alone again. My childhood was a series of photo ops. Every Christmas, Easter, vacation, we had to pose. We had to look happy. We had to look perfect. One Christmas, I was 12, and Mom had bought us all matching, itchy red sweaters. I was frowning. "Samantha, smile!" my dad snapped, already practicing his own relaxed smile by the fireplace. "It's itchy." I whined. My mother's voice, low and sharp, cut through me. "Stop it. Your father and I work hard to give you this life. The least you can do is look grateful for one picture. Now smile." So I smiled. A fake, tight smile. My eyes looked sad. My mother loved that picture. She said we looked like we were from a magazine. She framed it and put it on the grand piano. The hard work. That was their favorite phrase. "We've worked so hard for this life," they'd say at parties. Oh, they loved parties. Our perfect house filled with other perfect people. Loud, fake laughter, expensive wine, and perfume. My job? To be the perfect, quiet daughter. Smile, offer coats, then slip away to my room and read. One time, a woman followed me upstairs, looking for the bathroom. She saw me reading. "Your parents are a lot," she said, almost embarrassed, then laughed. Later, I heard my mother talking to her. "Oh, Samantha is just so shy. She's in her awkward phase. We're hoping she grows out of it." I wasn't shy. I just didn't like their friends, their noise, their fakeness. The truth is, my parents' hard work was a lie. The perfect house, the new cars, the parties, the white sofas, it all came from one place. My grandfather, Walter Reed. Grandpa Walter was nothing like my parents. He was self-made. Started a construction company with a single truck and 2 ladders. Built it into one of the biggest firms in the state. He was old-school wealthy, the kind of man who still polished his own shoes and read the newspaper with inky fingers. My dad worked at the company, his title, Vice President of Development. But I helped Grandpa with paperwork one summer. I saw the numbers. Dad's development was mostly playing golf and taking clients to expensive lunches. Grandpa's company paid for their house, their cars, the white carpets. My parents loved his money, but they were embarrassed by him. He was too real, too blunt. He wore old-fashioned suits, drank cheap coffee. I remember at a party a man was talking to my father about stocks. Grandpa walked up. "You don't invest in stocks, Walter," the man laughed. "No," Grandpa said, his voice deep and steady. "I invest in steel and concrete and people who show up on time. Things you can touch." My father's face went red. He quickly changed the subject. "More wine, anyone?" Later, I heard them arguing. "He humiliated me, Denise," my father fumed. "Talking about steel and concrete, like a common laborer." "I know Charles," Mom sighed. "He just doesn't understand. He's from a different time." They loved showing him off. "My father, the one who built this city." Dad would say, arm around Grandpa for a photo. But they never loved his values, never listened. They saw him as their personal bank. An old, slightly fussy bank, but one that would always give them money. They never thought the bank would close. To my parents, I was a failure, their greatest disappointment. They never said it out loud, not in those exact words. They were too polite for that. They used other words. "Samantha is just finding her way. She's creative. She's wasting her potential." That was their favorite. My parents' definition of success was so narrow. Big house, real job, doctor, lawyer, VP of development, marrying someone equally successful. I had none of that. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Portland. Small, creaky floors, tiny kitchen. My parents hated it. "It's so small," Mom exclaimed on her first visit, eyeing my worn but comfy sofa like it was diseased. "And the neighborhood, Samantha? Do you feel safe here?" "I love it, Mom," I said. And I did. My apartment was mine. The walls were a warm, soft yellow. My design sketches and favorite paintings were everywhere. Bookshelves overflowing. It was a space for living, not showing off. Messy, comfortable, real. My job was the other problem. I was a freelance interior designer. A decorator, my father scoffed when I told him. A designer, Dad. I help people make their homes functional and beautiful. There's no money in paint swatches, Sam, he said, shaking his head. It's a hobby. You wasted a college degree on a hobby. You should have gone to law school. I almost did. They pushed so hard. A law degree is so respectable, Mom would say. Think of the potential. I was miserable, crying one night studying for the LSAT. Grandpa Walter called. You sound terrible, he said. I'm fine, Grandpa. No, you're not. You sound like you're swallowing rocks. What is it? So I told him. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I wanted to make things. Work with color, light, space. Help people. He was quiet for a long time. I thought he was angry too. All right, he finally said. Come over on Saturday. Wear old clothes. When I got to his house, he didn't take me to the living room. He took me to his workshop in the garage, a big, dusty space that smelled like sawdust and oil. He pointed to a pile of old wood. I need a table for my entryway, he said. Let's build one. We spent the whole weekend in that garage. He didn't just tell me what to do, he taught me how to measure, how to cut, about different woods, grain joints. It's not about the paint, Sam, he said, running his hand over smooth, sanded oak. The paint is the easy part. It's about the bones, the foundation. If the joints are weak, the table will fall. It doesn't matter how pretty the paint is. My hands were sore. I had blisters, sawdust in my hair. I had never been happier. When we finished, we had a small, simple, beautiful table. It was strong. That's real work, Sam, he said, a heavy hand on my shoulder. Honest work. Don't you ever let anyone tell you different. I still have that table. It's in my tiny apartment. I put my keys on it every day. It's the most valuable thing I own. Grandpa Walter was the only one who understood. The only one who asked about my work, not my salary. He'd call. What problem are you solving today, Sam? I'd tell him about a small apartment with no storage, or a new family with no money for a nursery. And what did you do? He'd ask. I'd tell him my ideas. A bench with storage, painting walls a color that makes the room feel bigger. Good, he'd grunt. Smart. Honest. That's my girl. He was the only one who saw me. My parents saw wasted potential. Grandpa saw my work. He had a saying. I heard him say it a lot. Usually after he'd seen someone rude or flashy or fake. He'd watch them, his eyes sharp. Then he'd look at me and say, Money doesn't test people, Sam. Gratitude does. I didn't really know what he meant. Thought it was just one of his grandpa's sayings. What do you mean, Grandpa? I asked him once. We were at a diner. He'd just left a 50% tip for the exhausted waitress. You watch how people treat those they don't need, he said, sipping black coffee. You watch how they say thank you. You watch if they mean it. A person can have all the money in the world, but if they aren't grateful, they're poor. They're just an empty room. I nodded. I thought I understood. I didn't. Not really. I never realized that all those years, he wasn't just teaching me. He was watching me, and he was watching my parents. He always said, money doesn't test people. Gratitude does. I just never realized that our Christmas dinner, that was the final test. The drive back to my apartment in Portland was quiet. Streets, mostly empty, Christmas lights blurring past. My car's heater was broken, so I was cold. One hand on the wheel, the other in my coat pocket, fingers wrapped around that envelope. Keep it safe. His words echoed in my head. So cute. My mother's laugh. The man loves his jokes. My father's smirk. I felt sick. A cold. Heavy anger settled in my stomach. They didn't even open them. Didn't even look. They had laughed at him. Laughed at his gift, right in his face. When I got to my building, I ran up the stairs. I needed to be inside my own space. I locked the door behind me, leaning against it, breathing hard. My apartment was messy, but warm. I turned on one small lamp, made a cup of tea. my hands shaking a little. I sat on the floor, back against the couch. The envelope was on the coffee table, just a plain, white business envelope. My name, Samantha Reed, in his strong, familiar handwriting. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me was afraid to open it. What if it was a joke? A fake check for 1,000,000 hugs? After all that drama, that heavy feeling, I'd feel so stupid. But what if it was real? I picked it up, slid my finger under the flap, opened it carefully. I didn't want to rip it. I pulled out the paper. It was a check, a real cashier's check, from his personal bank. My eyes flew to the pay to the order of line, Samantha Reed, then to the little box with the numbers. My breath stopped. $100,000, $100,000. I read it again, and again. The signature at the bottom was his, Walter Reed. It was real. I sat there on my floor in my tiny apartment and just stared. My chest felt tight. I think I was supposed to be happy, excited, jumping up and down. I was rich, right? But I didn't feel any of that. I felt heavy, an incredible, crushing weight. This wasn't a gift. This was a statement. This was a test. And my parents, they had failed. He had given them the same envelope, the same chance. And they had laughed, tossed it on the sideboard like garbage. He knew they would. And he had given me one, too. And I had said thank you. It wasn't a test of me. It was a test of them. He was just showing me the results. I felt a sudden, hot wave of respect for my grandfather. So sharp it almost hurt. He was smarter than all of them, stronger. And I felt a deep, cold sadness for my parents. So blind, so lost in their world of white carpets and potential, that they couldn't see a real thing when it was right in front of them. I didn't know what to do with the check. Cashing it felt wrong. It felt like money, and this wasn't about money. It was about something else. I walked to my desk. On it was a small, dark wooden box. The table I built with Grandpa in his workshop. I keep my real treasures in it. I opened the lid. The smell of cedar and old paper filled the air. Inside, a photo of me and him, covered in sawdust, grinning. A letter from my best friend, Zoe, when I moved to Portland, saying, "You are brave." A small pressed flower from the first bouquet a client ever gave me. Things that mattered. I folded the check once, placed it inside the box, right on top of the photo, closed the lid. It felt right. It was safe. It was where it belonged. It was a symbol of respect. Proof that he saw me. I didn't sleep that night. What should I do? The next morning, I woke up feeling hungover. Made coffee. Stared at the wooden box. $100,000. That was life-changing money. Pay off student loans. Rent a real design studio. Security. A new thought crept in. Small, ugly. What if my parents were right? What if it was a game? What if this was the real test? What if he was waiting to see what I would do? If I cashed it immediately, would that make me greedy? Just as bad as them? If I didn't cash it, would I be disrespecting his gift? A fool? I felt so confused, like I was in a riddle. I had to know. It wasn't about the money. It was about knowing if this was real. Was this entire crazy thing real, or was I imagining it? Curiosity got the better of me. But it wasn't just curiosity. It was a need for truth. I told myself I wasn't cashing it. I was just checking. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely log in. I took the check out of the box. It felt like I was doing something wrong, like I was betraying it. Laid it flat on the table. Mobile deposit. Took a picture of the front. My hand was shaking. Blurry. Took it again. Picture of the back. For mobile deposit only. The app spun for a moment. Deposit submitted for $100,000. I felt sick. Put the check back in the wooden box. Closed the lid. I felt small. Like I'd taken this beautiful, heavy symbol of respect and just tried to turn it into money. I felt like my parents. The next few hours were torture. I sat on my sofa, staring at my phone. Tried to work. Couldn't. Every time it buzzed, I jumped. I was waiting for the deposit failed email, the insufficient funds notice, the just kidding text from Grandpa. I was waiting for a sign, waiting to find out what was real. The words submitted just hung there. I put the phone face down. I felt dirty. Cheap. What had I done? I'd taken his gift, his test, and treated it like a lottery ticket. I went to the kitchen and scrubbed my hands, but the feeling wouldn't go away. I paced my apartment, told myself it would be rejected. The bank would send the email. Then I'd know. I'd know it was all a game. I'd put the check back in the box and never look at it again. That would be the end of it. I was almost hoping it would fail. My phone was silent. The silence was loud. After another hour, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked it up. Banking app still open. Refreshed the page. My heart stopped. It didn't just stop. It felt like it was grabbed and squeezed. The pending status was gone. The check was listed under completed transactions. And my account balance, the number at the top of the screen, it had changed. I was looking at a number with 5 zeros at the end. It was real. The deposit hadn't failed. It hadn't been stopped. It wasn't a joke. It was real. Your deposit has cleared. The words from the bank teller were in my head, but the app was right in front of my face. It was just a number, but it felt like a mountain had just landed in my living room. My hands shook, so hard I dropped the phone. It was real. I sat down, put my head in my hands. I wasn't happy. I was terrified, because if my check was real, it meant their checks were real, too. And they had laughed. They had left them on the table. Oh God, I didn't know what to do. Call them. Mom, Dad, that check you laughed at? It was real. Call Grandpa? Grandpa, why did you do this? I did nothing. Just sat there, frozen. The number on my phone screen felt like it was burning a hole in my apartment. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, maybe an hour, I don't know. Then my phone rang. The screen lit up. Mom. My blood turned to ice. This was it. The other shoe. I let it ring once. Twice. 3 times. Wiped my sweaty hand on my jeans. Picked it up. Hello. My voice was a tiny whisper. Samantha, why didn't you pick up? Her voice was high and tight. Not my mom. Sharp. I was in the bathroom, Mom. I'll tell you what's up, she spat. I just had the most mortifying experience of my life. Your father and I were just, cleaning up from Christmas, and I found that envelope your grandfather gave me, the one he gave your father too. We were laughing about it. Her voice trembled. She was trying to sound casual, but failing. We thought, oh, what the heck? Let's see what the joke is. So I called the bank just to ask. And the manager said the checks were stopped. He said your grandfather had put a stop payment on them yesterday morning. She was talking so fast she was running out of breath. He humiliated me, Samantha. He let us. How could he? I said nothing. Didn't know what to say. Did you talk to your grandfather today? She asked, her voice suddenly cold and suspicious. No. Why? Don't lie to me, Samantha. I'm not lying, Mom. A long, cold silence. I could hear her breathing. The bank manager, she said, her voice now dangerously low, said that one check did go through. A large one. This morning. A pause. Ours were stopped, but yours went through. I couldn't speak. My throat closed. He's playing favorites again, she shrieked. The sudden volume made me flinch. It was a sound I hadn't heard in years. The sound from my childhood, of spilled water on the white sofa. It was raw, ugly jealousy. After everything we do for him. We host him. We take care of him. We manage his life. And you show up twice a year and he gives you. What did he give you, Samantha? Mom, she demanded. I couldn't tell her. Wouldn't. This is ridiculous, she snapped. I'm putting your father on. I heard fumbling. My dad's angry, muffled voice. Just give me the phone, Denise. Samantha, he barked. Hi, Dad. Don't hi, Dad me. Your mother is hysterical. You should have told us. Told you what? I whispered. That you knew. That you knew the check was real. You went behind our backs. You cashed it, didn't you? You scurried off to the bank first thing in the morning, like a little thief. I didn't. He's old, Sam. My father's voice changed, trying to sound reasonable now. Paternal. The voice he used when trying to handle a problem. He's old and he's not thinking clearly. He doesn't know what he's doing. I thought of Grandpa's eyes. Clear, sad, steady. He's playing games and you fell for it. And you've created a huge problem for this family. I didn't create anything, I said, my voice suddenly clear and cold. Listen to me, Samantha. That money is not yours. It's family money. Your grandfather is confused. You need to come here, and we are going to sort this out. We will put the money into a joint account. We will manage it for you. It's the only fair thing to do. You don't understand finances. You just waste it on your hobby. It's not a hobby. I flared. This is not up for debate, he shouted. You have put this family in a terrible position. You should have told us. You laughed at it, I said, the words finally coming out. You didn't even open it. You called it a joke. There was a long, terrible silence. I had said the truth, the one thing they couldn't argue with. My father's voice, when it came back, was flat and cold, colder than I had ever heard it. He's an old, senile man, Samantha, and you are a very, very foolish girl. He hung up. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear. The dial tone buzzed. He's old. He doesn't know what he's doing. I looked at the number in my bank account, then at the wooden box on my desk, the one I had built with him. Money doesn't test people. Gratitude does. My parents were wrong. I knew, with a sudden, terrible clarity, that my grandfather knew exactly what he was doing. The next 2 days were the longest of my life. I was a ghost in my own apartment. I didn't answer my phone, didn't check my email. My parents called again and again and again. Their names would flash on the screen, Mom or Dad, and I would just watch, my stomach twisting until it went to voicemail. My mother's messages were first, tearful and pleading. Samantha, darling, please call me. We're just worried about you. Your father was upset. He didn't mean it. We just want to talk. This is all a misunderstanding. My fathers were different, short and angry. Samantha, stop this childish behavior. Call me now. Then the text started. We know you're there. This is irresponsible. You are tearing this family apart. Me, I was tearing the family apart. Not their greed, not their laughter. Me. I turned my phone off. The silence was better, but it was also worse. The $100,000 sat in my checking account. It felt like a bomb. I was terrified to touch it, terrified to look at it. I bought groceries with my credit card. Didn't want to use the money. It didn't feel like my money. It felt like evidence. I couldn't work. Sat at my design table and stared at a blank page. Tried to sketch, but my hands were still shaking. The colors all looked wrong. Everything looked gray. I was alone. I was rich, I guess, and I had never felt more alone in my life. On the second day, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned my phone on, ignored the dozen new messages from my parents. I called the only person I could. Zoe. Sam. Oh my God, are you alive? I was about to call the police. Zoe Harper. My best friend since college. The opposite of me. Loud, funny. Not afraid of anything. A lawyer. A real one, as my father would say. She worked for legal aid, helping people who had no money. My parents hated her. Said she was aggressive and a bad influence. I'm not okay, Zoe, I whispered, feeling the tears start. I hadn't cried yet. Where are you? I'm coming over. No. I need to get out of here. Can I meet you? We met at our favorite diner. Old, smelled like coffee and bacon. I sat in a booth in the back, my hands wrapped around a hot mug of tea. Zoe slid in across from me, her sharp, dark eyes scanning my face. Okay, she said, all business. You look like hell. Start from the top. What did they do? So I told her. Everything. The dinner. The laughter. The pretend check. My parents' disgust. Grandpa's sad eyes. His words, keep it safe. Zoe just listened, her face getting tighter and tighter. Then I told her about the next morning. The deposit. The number. Zoe's eyes went wide. $100,000, Sam? Sure. I hissed, looking around. Holy, she whispered. Then I told her about the phone calls. My mother's mortifying experience. The stopped checks, my father's foolish girl. When I was done, I was crying. Just quiet. Tired tears rolling down my face. Zoe was silent, staring at her coffee cup. Zoe, don't. She looked up. Her face was not sad. It was furious. I'm going to kill them, she said, her voice a low growl. I am. I'm a lawyer. I can find a way to make it legal. You are tearing this family apart, I sniffled. They are not a family, Sam. They are a corporation, and you just messed with their bottom line. It's not funny, Zoe. I'm not laughing, she said, eyes blazing. I am furious. They've been treating you like this your entire life. Like you're the broken, weird one just because you're decent. And now your grandpa finally calls them on it. He finally shows you what you're worth. And they call you a thief for being grateful. I don't know what to do, I whispered. I'm so scared. Scared of what? Them, Sam? They can't do anything. It's your name on the check. It's in your account. It's your money. Game over. It's not about the money, I said a little too loud. It's him. It's Grandpa. What did I just do? Did I just get him in trouble? Is he okay? What if my dad is right? What if he's not? Zoe's face softened. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her hand was warm and strong. Sam, look at me. Your grandfather is a genius. He is the smartest one in this whole mess. He's not old and confused. He's strategic. He knew exactly what they would do. He's been watching them. He's been watching you. This wasn't a gift of money, Sam. It was a gift of truth. I took a shaky breath. So, what do I do now? Nothing, she said. You live your life. You pay off your loans. You rent that studio you've been dreaming about. You use it. That's the best thank you can give him. And you block your parents' numbers. I can't do that. Okay, fine, she sighed. Baby steps. Just wait. Wait for the next move. I drove home feeling not better, but stronger. Zoe had put some steel in my spine. Asterisk, he's a genius. It was a gift of truth. Asterisk, I got to my apartment, checked my mailbox, and there it was. Not a business envelope. It was thick, heavy, cream-colored cardstock. My name, Samantha, was written on the front in my grandfather's handwriting. That strong, clear, old-fashioned script. My heart was back in my throat. This was it. I went upstairs, keys shaking, sat on my sofa, opened it. No letter, no explanation. Just a single card, as thick as the envelope. Printed, not handwritten. Dinner Saturday, 7 p.m. Underneath was the address of his house. Not my parents' house. His house. That was it. My blood ran cold. This was the next move. This was the showdown. I called Zoe. He invited me to dinner, I said. Saturday. Okay, she said, cautious. Just you. I think so. It just has the time and place. So what? Zoe said, her voice getting that lawyer-like edge. You think he's about to confront them? Is he going to have them there? Is this an ambush? I looked at the simple, elegant card. Dinner, Saturday, 7 p.m. I thought about the stop checks, the $100,000 in my bank account, the decades of watching and listening and testing. A calm, cold, sad feeling settled over me. No, Zoe, I said quietly, staring at the card. I don't think he's about to confront them. I think he already did. I think the test is over. This is him announcing the results. The drive to my grandfather's house on Saturday night was the loneliest drive of my life. My little car felt small on the wide, dark roads that led to his neighborhood. My parents lived in a new, flashy development. Grandpa lived in the old, original wealthy part of town. His house wasn't a modern, white and glass box like my parents'. It was a 100-year-old brick house, solid and timeless and real, set back from the road, hidden by huge oak trees. I parked my car behind a row of other, much more expensive cars. I recognized my parents' silver Mercedes. My stomach dropped. They were here. This wasn't just announcing the results. This was an execution. And I didn't know if I was the guest of honor or the main course. I walked to the front door. I could hear my heart beating in my ears. I thought about turning around, getting in my car, driving back to Portland, never speaking to any of them again. But I thought of Grandpa, his sad eyes. Keep it safe. Had to see this through. I rang the doorbell. The door opened almost immediately. It wasn't Grandpa. It was his housekeeper, Maria. She'd worked for him for as long as I could remember. She smiled at me, a warm, genuine smile. "Samantha, he is waiting for you in the study." "Are my parents here?" I whispered. Maria's smile faded. "They are in the dining room," she said, and her tone told me everything. She led me down the hall. My parents' house was all white walls and harsh, bright lights. Grandpa's house was warm, walls lined with books, dark wood floors covered in old, beautiful rugs. It smelled like old books and wood polish and the faint, sweet smell of his pipe tobacco. It smelled like home. She opened the doors to the study. Grandpa Walter was sitting behind his huge, dark desk. He wasn't working. He was just sitting there, hands folded, waiting for me. "Hello, Samantha," he said. His voice was calm. "Grandpa," I said. I wanted to run to him, to cry, to ask a million questions. I just stood there. "You look nervous," he said. "I am." "Don't be," he said. "You've done nothing wrong. Sit down." I sat in the big leather chair across from his desk. He looked at me, his eyes clear and sharp. "You got my invitation?" I nodded. "They're here, aren't they?" "Yes," he said. "They are. Now, before we go in there, I want you to know something. What happens in that room tonight has nothing to do with you. It is not your fault. It is not your problem. This is between me and them. It has been for 30 years. Your only job tonight is to be quiet and to be real. Can you do that? Be real. Just be yourself, Sam. That's all you've ever been. It's all I've ever asked." He stood up. He was an old man, but he stood up straight. He looked powerful. He was wearing a dark suit, not his usual old sweater. "Let's go to dinner," he said. He put his hand on my back, and we walked out of the study. We walked down the hall to the dining room. I felt like I was walking into a bad dream. My parents were standing by the fireplace. They were not talking. My mother, Denise, was wearing a black dress that was too expensive. Her smile was stiff, stretched so tight I thought her face would crack. Her eyes were red. My father, Charles, stood with his hands in his pockets, staring into the unlit fireplace. His face was tight with anger, a dark, blotchy red. They both turned when we walked in. My mother's eyes flew to me. Her smile wobbled. "Samantha, you came." She looked at Grandpa. "Dad, this is a surprise." "Is it?" Grandpa said, his voice calm. He walked to the head of the table. "Please sit." My parents sat on one side. I sat on the other alone. Grandpa stayed, standing at the head of the table. He wasn't carrying a platter of food. He was carrying a thin folder, a legal folder made of beige cardstock. He set it on the table in front of him. The sound was soft, but it echoed in the silence. "You'll each find your name on these papers," he said. He didn't look at the folder. He looked at my parents. My mother's voice cracked. She'd burst into tears. They weren't sad tears. They were angry, frustrated tears. "You humiliated us, Dad," she cried, her voice rising. You stopped our checks. You made us look like fools after all we've done for you. What have you done for me, Denise? Grandpa asked. His voice was still quiet, still calm. It cut through her sobs like a knife. She stopped. We. I did stop the checks, Grandpa said, nodding calmly. I did. He looked at my mother. He looked at my father. For 30 years, I have given you everything. A house, cars, a job you don't do. An allowance for a woman your age. I have given and you have taken. And you have not once, said thank you and meant it. That's not true, my father said, finding his voice. At Christmas, Grandpa continued, as if my father hadn't spoken, I gave you a final gift, a simple test. I gave you the same thing I gave Samantha. My parents both looked at me. My mother's look was pure poison. I gave you a check, a real one, a gift, and you laughed. You laughed at me. You threw it on the sideboard with the garbage. You rolled your eyes, Denise. You smirked, Charles. You called me a joke. His voice was so calm. That's what made it so terrifying. He wasn't yelling. He was just stating facts. You laughed at a gift, so you laughed at me. It was a test, my father shouted, slamming his fist on the table. The crystal glasses rattled. A sick, twisted old man's game. Life is a test, Charles, Grandpa said. You failed. And her, my father yelled, pointing at me. The vein in his forehead was purple. You rewarded her for what? For doing nothing. For being a failure. For wasting her potential. She's done nothing. The room was silent. I could feel all their eyes on me. I felt small, like I was 12 again in the itchy red sweater. I looked at my grandfather. He was still looking at my dad. She did everything, Grandpa said, his voice so quiet, so full of power I almost cried. She did everything. He repeated. She listened. When I spoke, she listened. When I taught her, she learned. She works. She builds. She respects herself. She said, thank you for a gift she didn't even know was real. He turned his clear, steady eyes on me. She didn't laugh. The silence that followed. It was sacred. That's the only word for it. It was the sound of a 30-year-long lie finally dying. It was the sound of truth filling a room. My father's face was white. My mother was completely, utterly silent. Her mouth opened, then closed. They had nothing left to say. He had taken all their words away. My grandfather, Walter Reed, did not move. He stood at the head of his table, a king in his own home. My father's fist was still on the table. My mother's face was pale and blotchy. Grandpa picked up the thin beige folder. He opened it. He slid it across the polished wood table. It stopped right in front of me. This is yours, Samantha, he said. I looked down. My hands were in my lap. I was afraid to touch it. My father leaned forward, squinting. What is that? What is this? More games. I put my hands on the folder, opened it. It was not a check. It was paper after paper of legal documents. My eyes just scanned the words. I didn't understand all of them. I saw last will and testament of Walter Reed. I saw a durable power of attorney. I saw transfer of deed. I saw articles of incorporation for Reed Construction. And on every single page, in the places for executor or beneficiary or trustee, I saw my name, Samantha Reed. My breath left my body. This wasn't the $100,000. This was everything. The company, the house, the trust. What is that? My mother whispered. She was pale, looked sick. What is that, Samantha? She asked again, her voice rising. I couldn't speak. I just looked at my grandfather. "It's my estate, Denise," Grandpa said calmly. "It's my legacy." You can't do that." My mother stammered. "You can't. Charles. Charles is your son. He's the vice president. It's his." "Charles has a title," Grandpa said. "He does not have the job. He has never done the job. He has a salary which I have paid. You can't do this." My father roared. He stood up, his chair scraping violently on the wood floor. "I'm your son. She's a child. She doesn't know anything." "She knows how to work," Grandpa said. "She knows how to listen. She knows how to build." "This is illegal," my father yelled. "You're old. You're senile. She tricked you. She manipulated you." He was looking around the room, desperate, like he was looking for someone to agree with him. "You're not well, Dad," my mother caught on. "You're sick. You need help. We're going to get you help." "Yes, Dad," she cried. "You're not thinking clearly. This test, it's not normal. We're worried about you." They were trying to take his power, trying to call him crazy. I watched, horrified, as they tried to turn this on him. Grandpa just watched them. He let them talk. Let my father rant. Let my mother cry her fake, worried tears. He let the silence stretch out after they were done, after they had said all the ugly, desperate things. My father was breathing hard, his suit jacket bunched up. Tiemi mother was dabbing her eyes with a napkin, her face a mask of concern. Grandpa waited. Then he spoke, and his voice was not the voice of a senile old man. It was the voice of the man who built a company from a single truck. It was steel. "I am not sick, Charles. I am not confused, Denise. I have never seen more clearly in my entire life." He looked at my father. He looked at my mother. "You said I can't do this," he said. "I'm telling you I already have. The papers are signed. They are filed. My lawyer, Mr. Miller, has the originals. These are your copies. It is done." My father's face, it collapsed. The anger, the bluster, it just died. He looked old. He looked weak. He looked like an empty room. He sank back into his chair. He started to speak, opened his mouth. A little sound came out. A but. Grandpa's voice cut through the air. It was not loud. It was final. He looked at his son. He looked at his daughter-in-law. "Now I know who's real." That was it. That sentence. Just 5 words. But it was the end. It ended everything false in that room. It ended 30 years of lies. It ended the perfect image. It ended the hard work. It ended them. My mother stood up. Her movements were stiff like a robot. She picked up her purse. She didn't look at me, didn't look at Grandpa. She just walked to the door. My father sat there for another second. He looked at the folder in front of me, looked at his father. His eyes were full of something I had never seen before. It wasn't anger. It was hate. A deep, cold, empty hate. Then he stood up, straightened his suit jacket, and followed his wife out of the room. We just sat there. We heard the front door open. We heard it slam shut. The slam echoed through the big, quiet, solid house. And then there was peace. We sat in the silence. I was still staring at the open folder. Executor, Trustee Samantha Reed. My hands were shaking. I was rich. I was in charge of everything. I looked at my grandfather. He was still standing. He looked tired. He looked old, but he looked free. He let out a long, long breath. It sounded like it had been held in for 30 years. "Well," he said, his voice soft now, "I suppose Maria has kept dinner warm." He sat down, picked up the small bell by his plate, and rang it. I just stared at him. "Grandpa," I whispered. My voice was broken. I can't." "Can't what?" he asked. "I don't know how to do this. The company. The trust. I'm a designer. I paint walls. I don't know how to run a construction company." Maria came in, pushing a cart. She didn't look surprised that my parents were gone. She just started setting out plates. Roasted chicken, vegetables, warm bread. Grandpa looked at me. He smiled. A real warm smile. I taught you how to build a table, didn't I? Yes, but you started with a pile of wood. You measured. You cut. You learned the joints. You learned the bones. It's the same thing, Sam. Just a bigger table. He put a piece of chicken on my plate. We'll hire people to do the parts you don't know. You just be the boss. You just be real. You'll be fine. You're the only one I trust to be. We ate dinner, just the two of us, at that long, polished table. We didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about my parents. We didn't talk about the folder, which I had closed and placed on the chair next to me. He asked me about my work. Tell me about that project you were working on, he said. The one for the new family, the small apartment, the nursery. That's the one. And so I told him. I told him how I had built a crib with storage drawers underneath. I told him about the color I found, a soft yellow that made the tiny room feel sunny and big. He listened. He nodded. Smart, he said. Good bones. We talked about spring planting. He wanted to plant new rose bushes along the front walk. I told him which colors I thought would look best. We talked like we always had. After dinner, we had coffee in the study. Before I left, he walked me to the door. I'm scared, Grandpa, I said, my voice quiet. I know, he said. He put his heavy, warm hand on my shoulder. That's why I know you're the right one. The ones who aren't scared, they're the problem. He reached into his pocket and handed me a small, folded piece of paper. Not a check, just a note. Read this later, he said. He hugged me. Drive safe, Sam. I drove home. I felt numb, like I was floating. Got to my apartment, sat on my sofa, opened the note. His handwriting. Money changes hands every day. Respect only once. I cried. I finally cried. Not for my parents. Not for the money. I cried for him. For his long, lonely life, watching his family turn into fakes. I cried because he saw me. A week later, I sat in a big, polished office. The sign on the door said Miller, Grant, and Associates. Grant Miller was a kind man with glasses and a gentle smile. He looked a little like my grandfather. Your grandfather is a very, very smart man, Samantha, he said as I signed my name page after page. He's put a lot of trust in you. I know, I said. My hand was steady. The numbers didn't matter. The money was just money. It was a tool. It was a result. The lesson mattered. I'm still a designer. I have a studio now, a nice one. I hire other young designers and I pay them well. I'm also the boss of Reed Construction. I sit at a big table in a boardroom. I listen. I learn. I make decisions. It's just a bigger table. I never heard from my parents. Not directly. Their lawyers sent letters, of course, that Hay tried to contest the will. Said Grandpa was senile and under undue influence. But Grandpa was smart. He had been documenting his clear mind for years. Letters from doctors. Videos. The case was thrown out. They lost. They lost everything because they had already lost. They thought the check was fake. But the only fake thing in that house that Christmas night was their love. I still drive past that first bank sometimes. The one where I made the deposit. I remember the feeling, the shaking hands, the dread. And I remember the call that changed everything. It wasn't the call from the bank telling me the money was real. It was the call from my father telling me I was a foolish girl. That was the moment. The moment I knew he was wrong. The moment I knew my grandfather was right. The moment I finally understood what I was worth. And that decency, quiet and simple and real, was finally worth more than dollars. So, tell me, what would you have done in my place? Have you ever had a moment where you realized someone you thought you knew truly saw you? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.